Welcome to Raising the Flipping Bar, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned real estate investors. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and I'm the CEO of Elevation. We're a real estate investment company based right here in Denver, Colorado. We'll dive into smart investment strategies, market insights, and essential tips for scaling your real estate ventures. Whether you're making your first investment or your 100th investment, this podcast is your blueprint for success in the ever-evolving world of real estate investing. Get ready to elevate your real estate game and begin your journey with me. Something that I really want the audience to key in on is what Ed just said, is that things don't always go perfect. We can all absolutely lose money. You know, it was funny. And when we've done almost 90 flips now, I think we're on 89 that we'll close on at the end of this month. And I actually had a person that approached us about investing with us and scaling up and giving us the ability to do more properties. And this was in 2021. And I literally had never lost money. I think the first half of that was just being cautious and walking before we run. And then I think the second half of that was the freaking best market ever that we'll probably ever see in 2021 and 2022. And this was a Wall Street guy. And actually he told me, call me when you lose money. And I was like, you know what? That weirdly resonated with me. Now I'm a little bummed because it, like 2 deals later, I lost money on my first deal ever. So I didn't want it to come that fast. But I think that those battle scars really, really help make you a better investor. And I really want the audience to key in on this. So thank you for, being vulnerable and sharing that everything's not perfect. There's some other very large real estate podcasts out there that only talk about that the things are the best all day, every day. And that is, man, in real estate, that's not the case.
Well, it's not. And I think if you're going to do a flip a year, then yeah, I mean, you should do fine. And really, there's really no excuse not to do fine, because the worst case scenario is you need to be able to hold it, in my opinion. Like, I'm not going to exit a position at this point if the circumstances aren't right. But if you're going to do volume, and that's something that, I mean, I'm a deal junkie. I love it. You have got to understand that crazy stuff is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Stuff that is unexpected is going to happen. And you're going to take some licks. Like, the idea that you're going to bat 1,000 just isn't realistic. And so if you can take a step back and go, okay, out of 89 flips that you've done, I've got 4 that were crappy. I mean, that's 5%. And the upside, the return, would be incredible, is my guess. But to expect that it's not going to hurt is unrealistic. And what is trickier is, in that moment, how we react and how we behave. Because it's hard to go, oh, this is that time that I reminded myself, or my mentor said was coming. But to have that mental fortitude and the discipline of, hey, I'm still doing this, I'm still doing my next deal, or I have the discipline to treat this situation this way, whether that is how we're treating the people around us or how we are operating moving forward, whether we're pivoting or, I mean, we've all discovered things that we don't want to discover. Yeah. What are we going to do? And frankly, I've seen people just get destroyed mentally. In my earlier days, I was there. I mean, that 12-plex that I did, that was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. We opened up the drywall. It's like full of rats. I hate to say it, but like that bad. But you know what? Like, the world continues to turn. And so if you're not going to turn with it, you shouldn't be in this business, I think, as frank as that is.
Yeah. And I think that's so well said. And this honestly gives us like the perfect segue, because the first part of this episode, we've really dove deep into your investment background, all the, the cool and unique things that you're doing over a long period of time. What I would love to get, because the thing that's great about Ed here for everybody listening, is you've got tons of experience. You now have a team that you've run for 5 or 6 years. And so you were in the day-to-day. You have a lot of transactional volume that your team's doing. So maybe give us an idea. Let's kind of pull this back down to current day, to Denver real estate. Give us a little bit of a deeper dive into how is your team structured? How is your brokerage structured? Staffing, lay the groundwork so that they kind of understand where we can go and bring this down to Denver real estate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we do operate, it's a brokerage, but really it operates as a team. Okay. And we launched sort of end of 2019. And what was critical was the inside sales piece. And I think, Derek, what we've realized and what I coach my agents is, whether it's a friend, a family, whatever, we are in sales. We are here to influence folks. And sometimes that's a lender, sometimes that's a listing agent, whatever it may be. But the big launching point for us was an inside sales, associate or agent, whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
that was really talented. Because in the beginning, when you don't have any money, you have to be able to generate bottom of funnel listings. Buyers are good. SOI is great. I mean it. Like those are good. But listings drive the brand and they create bottom of funnel buyers.
Yep.
So part of listings that are bottom of funnel are expireds.
Yeah.
And those people get hammered with calls. And so in 2019, I was the one calling, and you cut your teeth because if you can't, you're not going to be able to coach it. You're not going to be able to teach it. So your only hope would be to bring in a very expensive coach, and that's probably not going to work because who's going to follow
Yeah.
somebody that's not willing to do it?
Yep.
So we had a really talented guy in the seat. In February 2020, we launched radio with Mr. Rick Lewis, a good friend of mine. And a month later, we all know what happened. And I thought the universe was against us. I was like, oh my gosh, we've saved up just enough to do this.
Yeah.
And anyway, long story short, it wasn't that. It created incredible drops in mortgage rates, which fueled one of the craziest or greatest runs in value that I think we've ever seen. And it allowed us to, I think, build the brand quicker because we were able to build revenue. And I really am a proponent for delayed gratification. What I mean by that is whether we're talking about building cash flow for the future, or in this case, putting everything back into the business to buy more radio advertising, to build out infrastructure, whether that be the tech stack, the team itself, whatever it may be. And so we did that a lot. And that time I was taking every listing appointment. I was actually taking every radio call too. So it was intense.
Wow. Damn. Yeah.
2021 got out of the listing agent seat and then was running the team, basically doing some deals, but really trying to remove obstacles as a team lead. At that point, we had a TC, a transaction coordinator, who handled our marketing. We had sort of a operations person, and we had probably 5 agents.
Okay.
And as of 2021, one dedicated listing agent. We
Okay.
were really specific. It cost us about $6,000 per radio lead, even the acquisition
Wow.
like the acquisition of the call. So it's really crucial that those convert. And so
Yep.
when it wasn't me, there was another guy that was here, very, very talented, went out. I think he alone did 66 deals in
Nice.
2021. So,
Wow.
what I realized is through the team, initially it was like, hey, I want to make ends meet and I don't want to be the guy all the time. I had done that before with a bunch of coaching with Tom Ferry, and it was great. But I
Okay.
realized, like, hey, there's something bigger here. And so initially what started out is, hey, this is to make ends meet, became like having a lot of impact in the team and with the people around me. And this is what we do to take care of our family. But equally, to have such an amazing group of people around me is really special. And now we've got a director of sales, director of operations, marketing department, coordination department. Right now, we've got about 15 buy side agents, and I think just one listing agent who handles just an incredible amount of volume. Will do nearly 50 million this year just himself.
Wow.
Um,
That's awesome.
and it's I've said this to them and I mean it, it's the most amazing iteration of the team. Part of that is experience and understanding like what works and what doesn't. And I think with a team, it is when you're dealing with 1099 folks with a low barrier of entry, it is a different world. From
Yeah.
the beginning, where it's setting interviews with agents, you're having a no-show rate more than any other industry for sure. It's just different. And that's okay. But over time, you start to understand it. And so right now, these guys, what we really push for is a very deep model, meaning they do a lot of business, like each and every one of them, versus the big box brokerage. And there's nothing wrong with this, but just
Sure.
a lot of agents, and you're sort of hoping that 5 or 10% do some volume. And so to see these folks, like, and a lot of them are younger folks, but to see them grow and make more money than they thought possible and get really good. I think there's
Yeah.
something about brokerage and investing and just, hey, if we're going to be here doing something, let's do it at a high level. and care about it and have standards. And it's hard. We talked about just the emotional load that comes with residential, but it's fun. And that's what we focus on is number one is quantitative.
Yep.
And I'd say that to everybody in the organization, like we need you to be able to win at the biggest level possible and have a trajectory in the financial space. Like, I want you making more money than you thought possible. And then the qualitative, and that is, what does it feel like? And what I've realized, there's a wonderful book, and I know we'll talk about this, but
Yeah.
called Culture Code. And understanding how to change and affect culture is so incredibly powerful because it's the little things, it's the in between things. So, how do the meetings look? How do they sound? Is there music on? Are there people in the office? Why are there people in the office? And why aren't there people in the office? What's on the screen? I'm like OCD, as you can
Yeah.
tell, but I care. And I know you care too. I mean,
Yeah.
with you have such an amazing space in the Broadway Collective. It's been really fun having it develop. And right now, I think we're 47% up versus last year, which
Nice.
feels like an amazing win because it also feels like we're clawing and scratching for every deal.
Yeah. And what's cool about that very last statement is fantastic because I think a lot of times people use the market as an excuse. And yes, the market makes things more difficult. We've got more inventory than we've ever had in the last 10 to 12 years. We have higher rates. We have some of these barriers. Who knows whether we are or not in a recession, but we're not booming. And you guys are up 47%. So I think people listening to this really need to key in on whether you're an independent agent, whether you are an investor or you're running a team, like you have the inputs and the ability to grow your business and you don't have to just sit back and wait. So man, kudos to having those types of numbers. I want to kind of ask you a question because I love it that you are a numbers guy. You mentioned that at that point you were spending $6,000 per lead on the acquisition side. Is that still kind of a current number? I know you've shifted your radio mix and your marketing
Yeah,
mix a little bit. What's maybe your current customer acquisition cost? And
sure.
then do you have those metrics where you're like, hey, we got to see a 3 times return, or maybe talk about the numbers? Because I think people don't really, A, they don't think about it, and B, they don't talk about it. So I'd love to know what you're comfortable sharing with our audience.
Well, oh my gosh, I'll share everything. But real quick, two things here. The first thing is people wonder, like, why, how are you up?
Yeah.
And everybody in this space, like all the agents, they like that's all about leads. It's not
Yeah.
leads. It's all qualitative. The reason we're up are the two leaders. There's two women in our organization, the director of ops, director of sales, that
Nice.
are outstandingly talented. And that is what it is. I just say that because I'm so proud of it. And it's
Mhm.
not this like new tech thing. It's
Yeah.
not these more leads. I keep wanting, we'll kind of pivot now. I
Yeah.
keep thinking that it's our 5th year in radio. Like we're going to crush. And it's just not that.
Yeah.
It just isn't. I wish it were. So I have to say, I don't have a bottom line. We have to be at 3x. We're looking very, very closely at where we're at. And it's not as good as we'd like. And I don't know. We've tested everything with copy. We have wonderful personalities on the radio that we work with. It's consistent, but you wonder, you're like, gosh, I think we should be getting more calls,
Yeah.
especially when you're out in the world and like everybody's, wait, you're the Ed Prather. And I always joke about
Yeah.
that. I'm like, you can be the Ed Prather too. You just write a check to 1035 The Fox and they'll take your money, I promise you. I think 3 or 4x, but then like what are you looking at, right, Derek? Like are we
Yeah.
looking at GCI? Are we looking at gross profit? GCI is going to be gross commission income versus a gross profit number, which
Yep.
is what comes in after you pay commission to the agents. At the end of the day, it's certainly profitable. We'd like to see that grow.
Yep.
And I think right now you've got suppression just with the inventory. We actually have seen over the last 6 weeks things kick up since the end of July Fed meeting, which has
Mhm.
been interesting.
Good.
Um, but what's really interesting here is I believe that it helps us convert, and I talk about the big media stuff. I believe it helps us convert every other lead because people, whether it's good or bad, they kind of know us in the market. Like, oh, we hear you on, because we do a lot of sports and we do a lot of news talk.
Yep.
I think it's helpful. I believe it's a branding exercise as well as a direct lead exercise. And so we're constantly trying new things, tweaking things. But at the end of the day, I believe it goes beyond the numbers. And so
Yeah.
because of that, we're not stuck to that 3x. But it's funny that you say that because that's kind of where we want to be.
Yeah. Okay.
is 3x, and especially if we can be 3x of gross profit, it is a sustainable model. But the critical piece here is those leads, those appointments have to convert. And
Yeah.
so they not only do they have to convert to a one status, but they have to convert to a closed status. And that is tough because situations change, markets are tricky. We try to qualify really well. It's not going to be worth anybody's time for us to go sit down with a seller who's unrealistic about price, or that paints them in negative light. And I don't mean to, doesn't have the ability to hit a price that makes sense for the market. And so because of that, we're really careful about helping and setting expectations. The byproduct of that is a very high conversion rate. And because the people that are in charge of those metrics
Yeah.
are very talented, from inside sales to operations to the listing agent and marketing and everything else working together.
Dealing with hard money lenders is the biggest headache real estate investors have. I thought that's just how hard money had to be until I met Backflip. Backflip is changing the lending game by actually making loans stress-free. And I know this firsthand because I personally use them for my own deals. Let me tell you, their free app makes real estate investing effortless. With just a few taps, I can apply for loans tailored exactly to my needs, whether it's low interest rates, high leverage, or even deferred payments. The best part, I can secure financing in less than 2 weeks, making it easier to scale my business and close more profitable deals. But it doesn't stop there. Backflip instantly provides all the data I need to estimate profits, including a curated list of high-quality comps, saving me hours of work. Unlike other lenders who disappear after funding, Backflip is a true partner for elevation. Their team is always just a call away and ready to answer any questions and offer support. With Backflip, you get the data and the cash you need to jump on good investments quickly and with confidence. Click the link in the show notes to download the free app. Now let's get back to the show. Well, and I want to be super sensitive to your time. So we've got one more topic that I want to hit on. But before we move on to this last topic, I would love to hear if there's maybe one gem or one quality with your sales and your operations leader, I should say. Is there one thing that these women do that you feel like has really driven results? Because you're right, it's not just pouring more dollars into the ad budget. It's this leadership, it sounds like. So is there something that sticks out where you're like, okay, A, we have the right person, and B, they do this thing, and it just really drives results?
So number one, and it's one of sort of the values that we carry here at the team, but they work really hard. And I know that should go without saying, but it doesn't.
No,
They
true.
work really hard and they have a high level of emotional intelligence. So understanding that if we're trying to influence all the way down the line to a seller and we're on the buy side, our only option is to influence the listing agent. And we need to influence the lender to make sure they call the listing agent. But these two people understand and have such a high emotional intelligence that they can coach our agents to influence and get the results that I think a lot of other folks aren't getting. And part of that is just having the influence to get people to take action and put in that hard work.
Yeah.
Because agents, I think I can say this and not feel bad, agents do not work hard. There's like 3% or 5% that work really hard. And that's why they get all the volume, and they deserve it too. And so I think it's kind of this grit. And also, if I could just add one more thing, it's that I used to do this thing, and I think as business owners, we do it where we know something's wrong and we kick the can down the road because it's not that wrong.
Right.
They do not allow that. And they're like, hey, and we have this funny thing that we say, hey, are we doing the thing?
Yeah.
Like by keeping this person here when they're not doing any business and they're stressed financially and they're not making it work and they're a wonderful person, are we doing the thing by not saying, hey, here's what we need to happen, or let me help. Let me help you make a change. Because capacity is limited. And if you've got folks that aren't positioned well or whatever it may be, but those things that are out of whack and we let happen, the friction arises, and of course it's going to be difficult to grow. So we don't do the thing anymore, and that's been helpful.
No, that's really good. And I love that. That to me is gold. I think that it's those uncomfortable conversations sometimes, and it's good old fashioned hard work. I mean, you're right. Yeah, people say the 80-20 rule for many parts of business. I think in real estate, it's the 95-5 rule, that really there are 5% A player, dominator type of individuals that crush it and do 95% of the business. We know the simple math is 50% don't do anything in real
Yeah.
estate, which is mind blowing. Like they don't do a deal, 50%. But of that, I think you're spot on. Okay. So again, want to be sensitive to your time. I would love to get your take as we kind of close out this next episode is the Denver market. I know this is crystal ball. I know I'm trying to lead you down the primrose
I love
path.
this stuff.
We're going to drop, probably right at the change from end of third to early fourth quarter for everybody listening. Would love to know how you're, well, not feeling, but also seeing it because you have so many agents, you do a lot of deals, you see data. How do you see the rest of this year going? And what do you see for 2025 in residential real estate in Metro Denver?
I love this stuff. And still, we're guessing at best. But, we talk every month about a number of key metrics, and it's probably the stuff that most of us are looking at. A big driver being cuts with the Fed, but even deeper understanding, like, we have a dual mandate, for stable prices and employment growth.
Yeah.
And with that, that's really difficult. I
Yeah.
mean, maximum employment and stable prices is very difficult because they're contradictory. So what I think is since we had the Fed talk at the end of July, and it seems more and more likely, and since then, again, in Jackson Hole, talking about the fact that rate cuts are coming because the economy is slowing down. So what they have done by keeping rates high, just the cost of borrowing in general high, is really slow things down. What I've noticed is, or I guess what we see is the market is extremely rate sensitive. And
Yeah.
it's not just the rate itself, it's the news around the rate. So since that end of July, we've seen a lot of activity. And by the time this drops, I'm nearly positive that we will have a rate cut. But we've seen it, activity really kick up. And what I mean is loan applications, showings, offers, properties going under contract. But still with that, we have this, we're still above that 10,000 unit point, which we haven't seen in 10 years. And we've
Yeah.
talked a lot about that. And of course, I'm talking about active inventory. What's
Yep.
really interesting here is we have not, at least between June and July, and we'll have our August data like today, but between June and July, we haven't seen values slip. I mean, they
Right.
like changed nominally. So if you have that much active inventory to not have values slip, what comes to mind is resilience. That you've got sellers that may not need to sell because they're not willing to chase that price down, which is
Right.
really interesting. As far as the rest of this year, I think the rate cut is going to push things further in the direction of more activity. But you and I both know that this is kind of common knowledge now. Like we're going
Yep.
to get a September cut unless there are some things that really went sideways.
Mhm.
In like employment was really good or
Yeah.
inflation kicked up. But with that, you're going to see activity, I think, really increase, and especially if we get the December cut, which
Yeah.
I expect that we will. We're watching really closely because active inventory, and we have a lot to choose from. And if you've got the neighbor on either side, the law of supply and demand would absolutely tell you that values have to come down. What I've heard and what we talk about a lot is that psychologically, when rates hit 5.5, that people are going to be more willing to let go of that 3 or 3.25 mortgage. Now we'll see if that happens. And we have one path where you could say, well, that's going to flood the market with more inventory. And you have this other half that you've just got a lot of optimism in the market. And you've got, I think right now you're seeing a lot of opportunistic buyers jumping in and going, hey, like there's deals to be had. But when you get the general public and that psychology to shift, people aren't using reason, in decision making.
Yeah.
They're
True.
using their interests and the emotion around it, and that's okay. We just need to understand that. So it will be really interesting to see what happens. But I think that values, especially in 2025, will certainly go up. I got to be really careful because that is the crystal ball.
Of
But I
course.
just think, and it will be heavily segmented because if you're talking about areas that have circumstances, and I hate to bring it up, but certain parts of like Aurora, where
Yeah.
you're up against some things that are really difficult and out of our control, that's different. But what we're seeing is like some of the adjacent areas to the metro area, people are less inclined to be in the city of Denver, or some, I should say.
Yep.
I mean, there's
Sure.
wonderful places in Denver. But we've seen a lot of action in the suburbs and a lot of stuff happening on the west side. So I expect values to come up. but we're watching very closely and across a number of metrics. And I love this stuff. So I don't mean to get too far in the weeds, but
Yeah, no, that's
from
good.
GDP, the last reading on GDP was 2.8, which is going to be revised down
Yep.
significantly, just like the last jobs report was. And so now we're talking about recession, which is really interesting because what are we talking about? GDP goes flat for more than a quarter or negative. And at 1.7, like we're far from flat. And so
Yep.
it would be really interesting because now you're feeling the pain.
Ed, one of the things that I've always enjoyed about us getting together off camera is you've got a finance background, you've got an econ background, like you're a data guy. And I think, yes, all things being equal, gut feeling should help sway somebody on the final, whatever, 2% of their decision. But especially in real estate, it's a data thing. So maybe is there one other thing you're looking at that helps make your decision to inform yourself of, yeah, this is the way we kind of think the rest of the year and next year is going to go? What's maybe one other data point you're kind of looking at? Because you've brought up some gems so far.
I think what I want to do is there's a couple of things that the Fed really looks at. And I think taking that and cross-referencing where mortgage rates are at. So let's just pick one of them, and that would be
Yeah.
inflation. So that cross-reference with employment and basically, can we get to cuts? Because again, all that really matters is the debt to income ratio,
Mm-hmm.
and then the psychology of that. And so if we can get to that 5.5, and let's say it's not even 5.5, that like, frees people up and it gets people excited and things are happening and oh my gosh, like we're back to where we want to be. Maybe it's 5.25, but there is a strike price or there is a strike rate, let's call it, where you're going to see a lot of action. And I think it's the sentiment. So we have to get past the recession talk. And if we go into recession, we go into recession. It's again, kind of like we talked about, like I can't control those circumstances. In fact, what we'd want to look at is like there's opportunities, that occur in that case. But we're looking really closely at probably employment, inflation, and how it's going to affect the Fed's decision to cut. And it's just a correlation. Like the cut doesn't mean that we're going to see an exact cut in mortgage rates. So we watched the 10-year Treasury bill. That is the closest indicator in actual mortgage rates. And it's dropping really quickly. So I know I overcomplicated things badly, Derek. There's a few things we're looking at. And at the end of the day, because of that rate sensitivity, that's the number one thing. Like we're not going to have a boom if mortgage rates go up to 6.5 again. It just isn't realistic. But you could say, well, we're kind of talking about economy, but we have mortgage rates now at the low fives. You're going to see a housing boom. You just will, especially because you have so many frustrated people because we went from I can't get an offer accepted to now I can't afford a mortgage. There's a prospective buyer out there. So there's frustration. And I think there's people wanting to get in.
I think the funny thing about that is you're right. Going back to 2000, we've had whatever 6 or 7 recessions, depending upon how you classify COVID. I guess that's my little asterisk.
Sure.
But it was only the Great Recession of 2008 where prices went down. And it's because of the foreclosure boom. So I'm with you. I think that it is interesting. Sense wise, it doesn't really calculate that values are holding in, but I think you're right. And then we kick in that supply and demand side of things here in the next 15 months.
Yes.
I do think we're going to have a healthier market. So, man, I have loved, we could do a whole 2 other hours, but I know you got a lot of other things going on. So we're going to wrap today. But before we go, what I would love for you to share with our audience is how can they get a hold of you? How can they contact you? Man, you're doing such cool things. Make sure and give us ways we can get in contact.
Absolutely. My personal cell phone is 303-870-4749 or ed@edprather.com. I love this stuff. Derek, you and I get along so well because I think we all know, and you and I certainly know, that there's infinite pie. Yeah. There's plenty of deals. And one thing I would say is I know I can get in the weeds with the economic stuff, but if you want to educate yourself with a very accessible source, I would look at Marketplace, which is basically an affiliate of NPR. It's a daily show, and it talks about the economy and what's going on and how it affects us as consumers. And it's so much more accessible than some of these papers that come out and things. And it's really been fascinating because it's a lot simpler than they want to make it seem. And when you start to understand it, you can at least have a feeling of if this happens, then this other thing's going to happen. We don't know if this thing's going to happen, but it's interesting. So if nothing else, I had to mention that because it's been really informative.
No, thank you so much for saying that, because I think so many other things can be so skewed and so biased. And here, we're
Yes.
not here to talk politics, but like things can just get totally out of whack. So that's great data. Man, Ed, has been an absolute pleasure on having you on the Raising the Flipping Bar. We will definitely have you on again. We'll look forward to connecting offline as well. But we really appreciate it. And Ed, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Hey, thanks again for having me, Derek. It is absolutely a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. If you found value in our insights and stories, let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on social media and be sure to share this episode with friends or colleagues who might benefit. Your feedback and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners like you. So please, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Thanks again to the Elevation Academy for sponsoring today's show. If you're interested in learning more, click the link in the show notes below. And remember, every property tells a story, every deal brings a lesson. Keep reaching for those goals, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening and watching Raising a Flipping Bar. Just a basic overall disclaimer is that A, this is not legal advice. B, this is not tax advice. C, this is not financial advice. I hope you get the gist, but I'm obviously not a lawyer, not a CPA. Hell, I'm not even a real estate agent, actually. But in general, we hope you get a ton of value out of this, but there is a bit of a disclaimer. Please consult a professional if you have any questions whatsoever. Thanks.